Hello again. Something I really like doing is being able to do video responses to questions that I've had from people out there in YouTube land, or Facebook, or the end of an email or whatever. And recently I had a question from somebody called Lizwan who said, I'm struggling playing guitar and doing chord changes and being able to stay in time while I'm doing it. What do you suggest? So I thought I'll talk about that a little bit in this video, but a lot of what I'm going to talk about is applicable to an awful lot of stuff that you play on guitar, not just about playing through chord changes. Because what I want to talk about is using a metronome to get your timing right. So starting off slow, getting it right, and then building up the speed, rather than starting to try and play something at the speed that you want to play it and struggling to get changes right, or get fingerings for scales or licks or whatever right at the target speed. It's all about starting off slow. Okay, so let's talk about the chord progression. Something, say, A minor, D minor, G major, C major. Now, if you've been playing for a while, those chord changes probably should be fairly familiar to you, because they're reasonably common chord shapes. If you haven't been playing for so long, being able to shape your fingers like that to play those chords might be a bit of a challenge. Holding the actual chord shape down, not so much of a problem, but actually moving from one chord shape to another could be a bit of a struggle. So what we want to do is make sure that we can play evenly through the chord changes. What I'm going to do is kick in a metronome, which is going to give us a steady beat. Okay, so here we've got a metronome ticking away. This is at 120 beats a minute. So if you think about it, 120 beats a minute, 60 seconds in a minute, so each beat is lasting half of a second. You can hear that ticking away. So if we're playing this in 4/4 time, what we're going to have is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. So the chords would go something like this. And what you can hear me doing there is, at the end of each bar, I'm changing from one chord to another. That sounds okay, because I've been playing for quite a long time and I know how to do those chord changes. Now think how that might sound if I was a guitar player who hasn't been playing for so long and I'm not quite so proficient with those chord changes. And in particular, pay attention to how the metronome's ticking away in the background, and think about it in terms of a 1, 2, 3, 4 pattern for each bar. Okay, so you can hear the difference there, really exaggerating the time it takes to do the chord changes. The metronome's still ticking away, and we're losing the rhythm of the piece. We're not going 1, 2, 3, 4, change 1, 2, 3, 4, change 1, 2, 3, 4. The changes are taking up time. So what you can do is take control of the metronome and slow the metronome down. There I was playing at 120 beats a minute. Let's really slow it down to something like, say, 60 beats a minute. Half the speed, to hear how that sounds. So now the metronome's ticking away at 60 beats a minute. So if you think about it, 60 beats a minute, each beat is lasting 1 second. So that's half the speed that we're playing before at 120 beats a minute. So this is probably going to sound really slow and sluggish. So let's hear how that sounds with these chords, again playing 1, 2, 3, 4 on the beats of the metronome. Okay, like I say, sounds quite slow, sounds quite sluggish, but think about it as a beginning guitarist. How much more time have you got to make those chord changes? So even if you're a beginner, it might feel like ages just sitting playing a chord for 1, 2, 3, 4. But what it's about is about being able to play evenly across the whole piece. So you always work to what's your, if you like, is your slowest thing that you can play. Chances are that's going to be the chord changes. So if you set the metronome to a speed where you've got enough time between the end of one bar and the start of another to be able to make the chord change, to move your fingers ready to play the chord on the first beat of the next bar, then that's the tempo that you should be playing at, even if it means you get bored for 95% of the time, where you're just sitting waiting for the chord change to come up, but you're still playing the piece at a really steady 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 pattern all the way through. Play that and get the chord changes right at a tempo, at a speed that suits you. Then as you get more proficient, wind the speed up on the metronome, go from say 60 beats a minute to 70 beats a minute to 80 beats a minute and so on, making sure that you can make the changes at the end of one bar into the start of another and be ready with the chord shape ready to go. And this idea of playing with the metronome applies to whether you're playing chord changes or if you're trying to say learn a scale. If you're trying to learn a scale and you want to get proficient at it, don't just wade in trying to play it as fast as you can. Start off, say, against a metronome, say 60 beats a minute or something like this. Like that. Quite slow to begin with, but making sure that you're getting the fingering right, the picking's nice and even and so on. And then as you get more proficient, as you got it right at a slower speed, wind the speed up, playing along with the metronome, and playing at say 70 beats a minute, 80 beats a minute, 90 beats a minute and so on, getting faster and faster, but making sure that it's nice and tight and what you're playing is in sync with the metronome. So a metronome is a great tool to have, whether you've got one as a little standalone clockwork thing, a digital thing, or if you want as a little companion product, the PhatPhish. I've got a metronome application which I'll put a link to in the information section down there on YouTube if you want to download that. As a little study aid, as a practice aid. Metronome is a really useful thing to have. So do your practice alongside a metronome, whether you're playing chords and chord changes or scales. Being able to play along with the metronome and getting it right at a slower speed that's comfortable for you and then building it up is the key to practicing getting things right, rather than just starting off trying to play things as fast as you possibly can, because that's when you start to make mistakes, because you're probably trying to run before you can walk. Okay, so something to bear in mind, Rizwan. I hope that helps you out. All of you, keep practicing, have fun, and I'll see you in another video soon. Bye for now.